How do you pace when you have a baby? Hi, I'm Melissa from melissaversusfibromyalgia.com. I am a mama of 4 and I have fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue syndrome, and endometriosis. And I have a thing for pacing. Pacing is one of the key treatments that helps me to manage my life, keep me functional, keep my symptoms more mild, and get on with things. So let's talk about all of my tips for pacing when you have a baby. So pacing for chronic illness when you have a baby is a bit like other times, except that it's a bit harder. Like at work, we know we get a lunch break. We can also go to the toilet by ourselves. So what is pacing? Why would we do it? And how can we do it with a baby in tow? So pacing for chronic illness is trying to live in alignment with your energy and pain levels. It's learning how to live within our energy allotment and trying to build our energy allotment by avoiding the boom-bust cycle. You can learn more about pacing specifically from MEpedia, and I'll put a link to a blog post that has extra resources for you if you're curious about pacing. I also have a free training about pacing. This is about using it specifically when you've got some really tricky confines like a baby. So obviously it requires a little bit of flexibility in your lifestyle to be able to pace, right? It's not easy to say, all right, I'm off for a rest now, or to keep that activity to rest ratio going. And when you have a baby, it's even harder, especially if you have babies that don't like to sleep, which most of mine were. For most of my babies, they lived in the front pack or the boba wrap for the first kind of 5 or 6 months, and they didn't really nap very well. My second child had such bad reflux that he very rarely napped off me. So it was very hard to get a break. So I've had to really go trial by fire to figure out how to get any rest with my small children. So here we go. The key areas to look at with pacing are how much you work each day. So that's kind of your macro view. How many hours are you active each day and doing things? Then it's your activity to rest ratio. So that's more of a micro view. And then it is your appropriate rest. And that's where we'll talk about my ultimate tool, and that's my secret weapon. So when our children are very young, we have limited choice. They need us 24/7, and that's the time when we need support. So one smart thing I did with my first son was that I expressed milk at 9 o'clock, and I went to bed and I left my husband to feed him a bottle late in the evening. And this way I would get a 3 or 4 hour head start on the night, and it was crucial because back then I didn't sleep well. Back then I didn't have LDN or crotiopan or anything. I didn't even have yoga nidra yet. So that was all I had to get any rest. And then from 1 a.m. I would have to alternate between giving him his bottle and then expressing. I had to exclusively express for individual issues with us. But I highly recommend making this work if you can. So even if you're nursing, adding a late bottle, whether it's expressed, whether it's formula, so that you can go to bed and get a few hours sleep, it can be a lifesaver, especially if that's the only way you're getting any rest. This is the time to reduce all other responsibilities. Be like Elsa and let the perfection go. So do the bare minimum. Find strategies to make the chores and the food preparation easy. Let others help. Reduce your work, because this baby is more than a full-time job, whatever your energy levels are. But obviously if you have less energy levels, it's a whole other thing. So let's talk for a second about your activity to rest ratio. Obviously that's a little bit easier to manage when the baby is small, if they nap. And if you don't have other children and responsibilities. Like I said, I didn't get babies who nap nicely, so I wouldn't know about that one. But there were times when I couldn't get a rest, so I would lie on the bed or the couch or the floor and I'd pop on a 5 or 10 minute meditation. You could also try legs up the wall or legs on the couch pose while the baby is having some floor time. Take some breathing breaks, so you can do some breath work when you're feeding the baby or when you're playing near the babies. Just little injections of rest and digest mode, which I used yoga tools for. I do have a free yoga series that teaches you 4 of my favorite yoga tools that you can do in 10 minutes or less, so I'll link that below as well if you want to think about incorporating that into your daily routine. I was able to nurse my 3rd and 4th babies, so no expressing, no bottles, no mucking around, and I made each feeding basically a mini rest break. So I would go lie in my bed and rest. And from here you can do breath work or meditation. I would turn on a meditation for at least one of those rest breaks. Or you can even, pop a television program on your phone and watch it there. But that way you can just relax, and it really helped me to embrace that activity to rest pattern. And as a mama with 3 or 4 children, it was delicious. It was so helpful. Yeah, let's talk about kind of my big tool now, my secret weapon, which we have touched on a little bit, but the proper rest break, the full stop rest break. So by 5 months, most of my babies were taking reliable naps a couple of times a day. And in my house, we have a rule. In the early afternoon, everyone takes a rest. I don't care whether you're sleeping or just resting quietly, that's what we do. And I 100% recommend a yoga nidra guided meditation rest. This is what I call the full stop rest break. And for me, it is more restful than sleeping. I can very rarely nap, and my nighttime sleep, although better with low-dose naltrexone and quetiapine and all of my parasympathetic nervous system techniques that we've been talking about, yoga nidra gives me more profound rest than any of that stuff. And the benefit of it is that you can set a time. So you can say, okay, I'm going to do 20 minutes or 30 minutes, or if you're lucky, 40 minutes, and that's it. And you're not kind of groggy and you're not kind of going over the time. It's like a bit easier to kind of keep into a parameter. But I think it's really important, like, to have that full stop scheduled rest break. I think it's useful all the time in your chronic illness journey, and I'm still doing it now, even as I'm heading towards mild in my symptoms. But if you can't get it in the middle of the day, if you can't do it at rest time, if it just doesn't work out, there are other times you can do your yoga nidra rest break, and I fully recommend doing it. It is the first thing I recommend if you join my yoga studio, which I'll put a link to. It's a pay what you can yoga for fibromyalgia, chronic pain, chronic fatigue studio. That's the first thing I recommend. If you've got no other time, do that one. But you can do it when your partner gets home from work, when your mother visits, at any nap time, right before bed, right when you wake up, in the middle of the night if you get stuck awake, maybe after a feed, any time. But I recommend giving it a go and trying it regularly. It has really made that much difference for me. And if you can afford it, like, the time when you have small children is the time to kind of pay for help if you can. So hire a cleaner or a mother's helper. If you can get any help in the day, this is what I would use it for. I'd use it for decent rest. Secondarily, if you have any extra help, do it for the thing you hate the most, whether it's cooking or cleaning. But the first thing should be for rest. If you have friends or family who want to know how to help, ask them to hold the baby so you can rest. People love holding babies. Let them hold the baby so you can go and have a rest. At this stage in our lives, rest is king. Now, obviously, I've got a load more things I could say. I've written a book, Pregnancy and Fibromyalgia. It's probably one of the only books. It was, when I wrote it, one of the only books, and I don't think any new ones have been written, so you can check that out. You can go back into my archives, go over to Melissa versus Fibromyalgia. I've written a lot of things about it. For the last 10 years, my context of improving has only been with children, so all of it is child friendly. But my final tip for you is go to bed. Once that baby's asleep, go to bed. If you get the baby down in the nighttime, I know it's tempting to catch up on chores or blob on the couch or whatever, but chronic illness means you need rest and you need sleep. You'll be thankful you did it when the baby gets up at 5 a.m. Prioritize your rest. And even if at the moment it's little dribbles, right? Little dribbles into the rest and digest mode. 5 minutes of breath work, 5 minutes of a restorative pose while the kids are playing, 10 minutes of a yoga nidra meditation before you go to sleep. Keep on top of the nervous system, keep it relaxed, and get your rest. And then you can build on it when the baby is bigger and you're out of this survival period. Let me know what is your best tip. Let me know if this was helpful, and I'll catch you again soon.